something for my godson Elijah and a little girl named Corinne.
So Lindsay and I are analyzing a song by Tupac Shakur called Keep Your Head Up. And we picked this song because Tupac highlights issues that a lot of women on welfare face. A lot of rappers started out living in inner cities and have experienced what it is like to either live on welfare or know someone that has been on welfare or is currently on welfare. In a lot of Tupac's music, he addresses issues pertaining to racism, race, or class and violence. Another issue that he reveals through his lyrics are the struggles that a lot of women on welfare face. In the first verse, he says, "Give a holler to my sisters on welfare, Tupac cares and don't nobody else care." And we liked this as an example because he addresses the issue that nobody else cares, referring to the government and its attitude towards black women on welfare. He mentions sisters on welfare, which assumes that women are the majority of people receiving assistance. And through the lyrics in the song, he also addresses the issue that there is a black face on welfare.
And another quote that we took from the song says, "Got our name from a woman and our game from a woman. I wonder why we take from our women, why we rape our women, do we hate our women?" We thought it was a really powerful quote to show how women on welfare are treated as objects and baby makers. And these lyrics also point out that women, no matter what their financial state might be, should be treated with respect and not as just mothers to their children. And kind of a final wrap-up of Tupac. Throughout his music, he has drawn more attention to many of the shortcomings of the welfare system. It is rare to see this from anyone who also represents violence through their lyrics, and a lot of rappers tend to be very violent, so it's interesting that he covers kind of both areas. We feel that this shows how important welfare is as an issue in our society, and that more people should address issues like this rather than unimportant stereotypes and misrepresentations of welfare recipients.
Labels are like rubber. They bounce off of me and stick to you.
I'm Rebecca, and I'm going to be talking about welfare, racism, and human rights. According to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of herself and of her family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services. Motherhood and childhood are entitled to special care and assistance. However, right now in the post-civil rights movement era, there is still racial discrimination in employment and housing, racially segregated schools, racism in healthcare and criminal justice, environmental racism, transportation racism, racial discrimination in voting procedures, racial bias in mass media, racial-based hate crimes, and everyday racism in daily social interactions. Given that racism exists today in such a wide range of settings, it would be surprising if it did not exist within the realm of welfare policy and practice. Welfare racism is therefore defined as the organization of racialized public assistance attitudes, policy making, and administrative practices. There's no doubt that the U.S. welfare policy is molded with African Americans in mind, and their allegedly defiant family, work, and reproductive behaviors and moral values. These stereotypes have led to widespread attitudes of hostility among whites towards welfare spending. It has also led to welfare reform, which includes mandatory work requirements, punitive sanctions, and eligibility time limits to end welfare dependency. In addition, it is also believed that women and mothers of color in urban underclass need a hard push into the labor force because they are prone to sloth and irresponsibility. This belief has led to the mandatory work requirement. It is also believed that African Americans, women, are promiscuous, are hypersexual, and have a lack of family values. This has led to the family caps that penalize families economically for births during welfare assistance. In terms of immigrant racism, PRWORA has stripped away eligibility for federal assistance from many immigrants to discourage additional immigrants from coming into the U.S. It was thought that welfare acted as a magnet for immigrants and was contributing to that fateful day when American whites actually ceased to be the majority. People whose first language is not English encounter a serious language barrier when they have contact with the welfare system. Eligible immigrants and refugees are often told to go back to where they came from when they try to get help for themselves or their U.S. citizen children. Human rights activists have been trying to fix this issue, and the Transnational Racial Justice Initiative has signaled out PRWORA as highly discriminatory and its effects on people of color and immigrants. They stated, welfare policy in the U.S. has always been highly racialized, and this affects equal access to services. Given the pervasiveness of employment discrimination in the U.S., current policy trends to tie access to social services to employment have only exacerbated racial bias and discrimination in these programs. In addition, the Women's Color Resource Center have noted that communities of color and immigrant communities already characterized by significantly higher levels of minimum wage work, homelessness, hunger, and poor health are further jeopardized by the discriminatory impact of welfare reform. In conclusion, welfare reform in the United States, by perpetuating and deepening racial discrimination, contradicts fundamental human rights. Therefore, bringing about an end to welfare racism is a necessary step if poor people's human rights are to be honored.